Hey everybody, today I'm speaking with Robert Dunn. He is the king of weird cars. Really, his whole channel is like nothing I've ever seen before. His style is fast-paced, yet easily digestible and incredibly thorough. It's funny, he has a unique sense of humor, and I'm stoked to be talking to Robert. I mean, he's killing it on YouTube. He has hundreds of thousands of subscribers across his channels. He gets over 100,000 views a video every single time. He has a thriving Patreon, and all in all, he seems to be living his best life. He has taken his passion of weird cars, and he's making a living off of it. He's a star. He's the dopest. Robert, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. That was a heck of an introduction.
Yeah, man. But seriously, so your style is very interesting to me. So for anybody who hasn't listened or watched his videos, you have no music or anything, and you talk to the camera. So let's say you're testing out an electric car or something like that.
Mhm.
So you'll kind of introduce the car, maybe a little story, but you'll constantly cut to kind of different locations. You'll say like a few sentences, maybe a paragraph's worth of speech, and then you'll cut to like a new location. And this is like I've seen other YouTubers do this, but the way you do it, you work it well into the videos. It keeps things interesting, but it also doesn't feel forced or like you're trying to be overly artistic about it. But you in general have a nonchalant style. So I'm just kind of wondering like where did your style of video making come from? Was that by design, or did you just kind of throw it together and this is it?
I mean, it just kind of, like anyone's video style, it just kind of gradually evolved over time. What I go for now is, I mean, I could say that I'm business savvy and I'm trying to keep engagement high, but really it's just, I make the kind of videos that I would want to watch. And a lot of what I do is just adapted mimicry from other creators I like. One that sticks in my head is This Old Tony. I really like his video style. If you were to just tell someone about a This Old Tony video, it would sound like the most boring thing imaginable, but the way he puts his videos together is just it's just excellent. I never miss a This Old Tony video, even if they're just about like a I don't know, cordless pruner or some mundane topic like sharpening a knife. He always makes it interesting, and that's the kind of style that I hope to achieve. At least I hope my videos are entertaining. That's what I go for anyway.
Hmm. They definitely are. Like, it's like I've seen a lot of videos. I've interviewed a lot of people. I've run my own channels, and you do a really good job for real.
Well, thanks.
It's very impressive. So I'm kind of wondering. You clearly know a lot about cars, and I'm wondering, like, what is your background in? I'm guessing you were or are a professional mechanic of some kind, or are you someone you've just kind of always been interested in cars and doing your own thing?
Yeah, mechanics is not in my background at all. Before I was a YouTuber full time, I was a software engineer,
Oh, right on.
and that didn't transfer at all to what I'm doing now. And I guess I'm just mechanically inclined. I have. It's going to sound really boastful. I've got the engineering mindset. I, I just like tinkering with things. So I work. Kind of have to work on my own cars with how obscure they are, and it's gotten to the point where I just don't even think about having anyone else work on the stuff that I have because it's just kind of not an option unless we're talking about like my F-150.
Mhm.
Then I might take that to someone else because there's lots of people that know how to work on that. Not many people that know how to work on a Wego or a Coda or something. I'm just on my own for this stuff.
Mhm. Which I feel like plays into your channel really well. Like obviously you're constantly tinkering with your own cars, repairing them, whatever. And that kind of plays into the content. Like your life sort of builds these videos in organic way, at least something resembling that. If I had to guess, and
Yeah.
like before your YouTube channel, like you were a software engineer, you said like how has YouTube changed your life and perspective on things? Like, do you feel like you are living the dream? Does it feel better to be your own boss, or yeah, like how has it changed how you feel when you wake up in the morning?
It's kind of a mixed bag because yes, it is living the dream and it is good, but it's also more stress than I had at my last job.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And all of the stress that I had when I was working a real job, well, not all of it, but a lot of the stress that I had when I was working that job was trying to make time to do YouTube on the side because that's really what I really wanted to be doing. And so I'd spend a lot of time at work thinking about not work. I'd spend a lot of time after work trying to get motivated and not be exhausted to do the things that I wanted to do as a side hustle to make it become my main hustle. And now, I mean, obviously, I don't have health insurance or benefits or things like that because I'm self-employed. But I can also more or less do whatever I want to do, which is it's great, but it's also a struggle for someone with huge levels of ADHD like me. I have to I'm in charge of keeping myself in on task, and I'm not very good at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what is it do you think about creative people? Like I have the exact same issue. Like my channel Treesicle, like it was successful, but I also felt like I was constantly struggling to kind of focus. It's like there's
Yeah.
something that comes with having that creative brain where you can think of these cool video ideas and you have enough clarity to execute them in a way that maybe somebody who is more methodical and consistent with their motivation and work hours can't necessarily do. So it's like this sort of double edged sword where you get this ability to create novel things, but there's also this trade off where it's kind of unreliable and can be kind of maddening at times. Like,
Yeah.
why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I don't even try to think about why it happens. I just try to deal with it.
Mm,
Sometimes it's really helpful. Like right now, I'm electric converting and escape, and the research parts of that I'm really good at because I'll get so hyper fixated on whatever it is that I'm trying to design in my head or learn about or whatever. But when I go to actually implement the thing that I've just spent all that time researching, then I'll walk into the other room in the shop to get something, forget why I'm there, and then just get lost in a thought tangent for 30 minutes and then come back to reality half an hour later, and forget what I was there in the first place.
hmm Dude, it's like we're the same person. It's I don't know why that happens. Like, but do you feel like those thought tangents sometimes produce something useful? I don't. It's almost like your brain is just hyper focuses on random things sometimes, and that occasionally one of
Yeah.
those things is useful. But when
Yes,
it's
it is.
not, it's kind of just getting in the way of this thing that you need to do.
I don't want to say it's almost always useful, but it is almost always useful. Like just a couple of days ago, I found myself lost on one of those thought tangents, just pacing around my shop. But the thing that I was lost in thought about was the next project. And I was pacing around my shop, talking out loud. That's how you talk normally. Talking out loud about what the just kind of going through what I was going to say on camera for my next project when I should have been working on the project that was at hand, but you know, it's helpful. I've already gone through what I'm going to say in my head by the time the project has actually arrived. Of course, the
Mm-hmm.
problem is when that next project arrives, then I'll be thinking about the project after that, but there's
Such is
bonuses.
life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's almost like it can help you kind of plan ahead. Like do you feel so how was it for you working a more normal job? Like was it hard to conform to the structure of that or did you feel like the structure was actually useful for you because it would sort of force you to do work during certain hours maybe?
Um, well, as a software engineer, I didn't have like a strict schedule to get in there. It's just, and I changed it all the time. Sometimes I decided I wanted to get in at 6 in the morning and leave at 3 in the afternoon. And then I'd go for weeks where I was coming in at 10 and then leaving at 6. It's just all over the place. But I did find that this whole distractibility and hyperfixation thing affected what I wanted to work on. if there were a list of tasks that I could choose from, I would always go for the longer, more detailed ones because I would get just so lost in the, I don't want to call it red tape, that's a little dramatic, but I would get lost in the red tape of the small tasks because you got to pull down the code, pull down the branch. God, it's been like 4 years since I've done this. You pull down the branch, you do the task. There was some high level stuff that you had to do before you actually tackled the task, and then once it was done you had to have it peer reviewed, and then you had to do a merge request. I don't
Hmm.
remember how GitHub works. It wasn't GitHub, how Git works. And then after all that, then it had to be approved, and there was just so much overhead on either end of the actual task that I tried to pick as long of a task as possible so I could get into it rather than, oh, here's a tiny thing. Let me do some paperwork, work on it for 5 minutes, and do some more paperwork.
Mm. Hmm.
I don't know if
That
any of that made sense. My distractibility is coming through very clearly right now.
No, it made total sense. Like you seem like somebody who likes to get lost in what you're doing rather
Yeah,
than kind
absolutely.
of dealing with the administrative stuff.
Right. Which is why I like editing so much, I think, because there's not much opportunity for distraction when you're just plunked down doing one thing at one screen for
Hmm.
hours.
Hey there. You probably know the Video Creator Show is brought to you by VidChops.com. What is VidChops.com? Well, it is an editing service that will take the horrible burden of editing off your back. We all know video editing. It's tedious. It takes forever. But what if you had a professional who did it for you? You go to sleep, you wake up, it's done. Wouldn't that be magical? VidChops.com. Hire a professional, save yourself time and energy, and take your YouTube channel to the next level. Yeah, editing I have a funny relationship with because you're right. It kind of commands a lot of attention, right? Because it's
Mhm.
audio and visuals. So you can listen to music and stuff, but it just, I find doing that versus like making a thumbnail, for instance, it just takes more focus. It just does. So
Yeah.
you seem to like editing. What is it about the editing process that you enjoy? Because I hear all over the spectrum. Some people hate editing, but it's a necessary evil. Some people love it. You seem to be more on the enjoying it end of the spectrum.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of my favorite parts of the process. The end result of editing is immediately clear. You get that pretty instant dopamine hit from watching what you had just been planning and working on for days, weeks, or months come together. And like I just said, there's not much opportunity for distraction there. So I can just sit down, focus on it, and just dive deep into this world of editing and creative process. And it's just no other part of the process has the same feeling, I guess, as editing does. Because when I'm writing a script for some of the videos, I'll be sitting there going through what I'm going to say in my head. But when it comes time to actually write it down, there's a loss of translation between the rants that I just went through in my head and what actually comes down on the keyboard. And it's just not as cohesive of a process as editing. And of course, there's the actual video making itself, which is a whole different game.
Hmm. So when you write these scripts, is it more of an outline or do you like write out specific words and sentences? Because especially with your video style, you kind of jump around to different locations. So it seems like it wouldn't be that hard to kind of internalize or even memorize lines and then say them and then kind of cut to a new place. So yeah, what is that like, the script process?
It's word for word. If I'm writing a script in a video, it is word for word, and I plan out the shot list ahead of time, the scene list
Mm.
ahead of time. And I try to keep track of it. I'll just write down the whole script in a Google Doc, and then I'll go through later and highlight color code for each scene location. Usually, I'll try to have 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different locations, and I'll color code them so that I can keep track of it and make the filming go as quickly as possible.
Hmm. That is very organized. Like, do you have you tried? Not even that I'm recommending doing this or anything, but like, was that something you had to figure out over time, or did you just
Yes.
start doing that from the very beginning?
No, definitely had to figure it out over time. I started out trying to do the outlines, but when I get out on a filming location, there's too much going on. I don't remember what I've said previously. There's lots of room for me to make a mistake or forget to say something or to repeat something I've already said, etc. So I just gradually over time started adding more and more to the script and making it more and more well defined. And now if I
Mhm.
say something off script, I'll try to edit the script after I've said it, just so that I can get everything cohesively together. Also
Mhm.
helps when putting everything together for editing that I've got everything color coded for scene location, since I
Sure.
film out of order.
Yeah, totally. So, like, for somebody who is getting into YouTube, like, let's say they watch your channel and they are interested in also having a YouTube channel and
Mhm.
doing well at it. Like, what is some advice you would have for that person who is just starting out?
My advice is always do what you want to do, because if you're trying to turn it into a business or some sort of legitimate income and you are not fully into it, then you just wasted your time. Because I don't want to say trying to be a financial success at YouTube is an inevitable failure, because obviously it works for a lot of people, but it's going to work a lot better if you're really into it. And if you like to make the videos, then that's even better. That's like the kind of the secret sauce. Unless you got excess money, you can hire a production team to make the video side of it for you.
Hmm. Yeah, which I think a lot of people, they, especially with where YouTube is at now. I think this was less common in the earlier days of YouTube, but it seems a lot of people, their end goal is kind of to have that production team where they want an
Yeah.
editor and they want a lighting guy and a sound guy. But do you like what is your opinion on that? You seem like somebody who likes to have your hands on all parts of the process. That seems to be sort of how you build your videos, but do you have you ever thought about hiring somebody else or something like that?
For any of the creative parts, absolutely not. I have no desire to hire someone else. I want to do all of that myself. Maybe that makes me sound controlling or weird, but
No, no, it makes sense.
for the in-shop work, I've thought many times about hiring someone, mostly to keep me on task. If I've got someone coming to my shop on a schedule every day, then I'm more likely going to, or I should say, I'm less likely going to be likely to, wow, could phrase that better. I'm less likely to wander off into my house for 3 hours and not realize where the time is gone.
Mm-hmm. So, what would this person do? Would they be like an assistant who helps you organize things? Would they just sort of be an employee, and because they're on the clock, that would just sort of make you more likely to stay on schedule? Like, what would this person's job be exactly?
I don't know, and that's why I haven't hired anybody yet. I don't know what I'd have them do most of the time.
Hmm. Yeah, fair enough. It's especially introducing somebody else into your process, especially when there is sort of a controlled chaos that goes into it. You kind of have to figure out how to make the process more objective so that somebody else can kind of understand it. Like, obviously, it seems your scripting is very organized, but other than that, it seems there's a lot of room for kind of changing things on the fly. And as soon as you
Yeah.
start getting other people involved, that becomes at least a little bit harder because if you change something, then maybe that messes up something that they're doing. But then also, it could save you time and create some structure. It's sort of a double-edged sword, as always.
Yeah, I don't know how I would communicate a lot of this stuff that I do. Like when I'm filming, I'm actively thinking about how it's going to go together in the edit. And I try to, I'm not always successful at this, but I try to, if I'm filming a project, I'll edit together what I have every day or every 2 days or at least every week so that I can remember what I was envisioning for the edit while I was filming. Yeah, I don't know if that made any sense, but yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's like, I mean, it's sort of an intuitive process, right? Like as you're doing things, things come to you, and you
Yeah.
start sort of processing how things come together,
How do
and
you incorporate
it's
someone else into that? I don't understand.
yeah, some people are really good at it, and then you have people like Casey Neistat, for instance, who he says every time he tries to hire somebody, it just everything takes twice as long. So it's
Yeah.
depending on who you are, it might just not make sense, and fair enough. Like it's or maybe it's just the right person. Like when you know, you know. I guess it's like
Yeah.
getting married, kind of. Well, eventually, maybe someone crosses your path and you're like, oh, we got chemistry. But going out of your way to find that person is sort of a different vibe, you know?
Oh yeah.
hmm Yeah. So now you have all these cars, you have all these fun projects that you have kind of turned into videos. Like, what is your kind of next? Do you have a next horizon? Not just project necessarily, but like a big sort of pie in the sky goal.
No, really. I just kind of want to keep doing what I'm doing, which is work on anything, buy cars that suit my fancy, just follow my interests. That's what I've always done, and that's what I want to keep doing, and just keep making my videos incrementally better.
hmm
That's pretty much it.
hmm I think that's beautiful. I think there's a purity in that. And that honestly, I mean, I think that is why your channel has been really successful. Because I don't know, there can be this thing that happens when somebody starts getting some views on YouTube. I mean, it could be anywhere, but they essentially like they stop pursuing what they're genuinely interested in, and they sort of get caught up in the views and the notoriety and the
Yeah,
money.
I don't
And
even look at the analytics.
mhm, that is amazing. That's I man, that's a good way to do it, I think. Especially when you already have this momentum, like you can
Yeah.
kind of operate off your intuition more easily. hmm
Yeah, on the same note, I worry that because I don't really know what's caused this momentum, I'm worried that it's just going to suddenly go away, which I think inevitably with all YouTube channels, there is a peak at some point. I'm always thinking, am I at the top of the peak? Am I going to go downhill next? But it's probably universal among
hmm
creators.
Oh, it's completely universal. Like everybody I've talked to has that thought. Like I've certainly had it a lot, and it's I don't know. I think it's part of having an audience. It feels sort of weird and ephemeral, right? Like there's
Yeah.
people watching you. Like what if they just stop? Like I don't know. It just feels like this. It feels less official or something than like having a normal job where you get hired and you signed a contract and it's I mean you didn't sign shit to be on YouTube. It's just you just started
Yeah.
making videos and now here you are. And no, I get it. It's there's something about that is there, but also it seems like just the way you're doing things is working well. And I think having like sticking to that kind of purity of just pursuing what you're interested in. I think people genuinely love that, and that is the easiest way to continue doing well, like truly,
Yeah.
because like I said, I've talked to a lot of people who they tried too hard to sort of distill why they thought they were successful into a formula and then act on it as much as possible. And I've even made this mistake, and it just doesn't end up working out in the long run. Like when you try too hard to kind of catch the wave, especially when you're in a niche like yours. I think maybe if you're, I don't know, making like celebrity gossip videos, this doesn't apply. But when you're doing something like what you're doing, I think sticking to like your instincts is actually what's most important, in the simplicity to that, especially with how your mind works. I don't know, I feel like I'm sort of talking advice at you, but I think as a creative person, it's you just got to stick to your guns.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I like to think that my audience watches the videos for me,
Mm,
and I like to throw it if I'm gonna have some sort of funny skit or I don't know, little moment of entertainment. I like to put that right at the beginning of the video so that if someone new clicks on the videos, never heard of me before, then they continue watching the video for me, not necessarily for the content, because especially with the niche that I'm in, there's only so many obscure cars that I could feature.
hmm
I mean, that's by definition, that's what makes them obscure. So if I made my channel more about the content than about me, which sounds incredibly narcissistic, if I made it more about the content, then that could change and people's interests could change. But if it's more about me and my personality, I don't have to worry about the content as much. I don't have to worry about what's going to get the views as much. I still have to worry about it a little bit, and it's still in the back of my mind when considering projects or videos or etc. But for the most part, I can do what I want. I mean, the next project that I have planned is, on the face of it, incredibly boring. I bought this electric mower a couple of years ago, and it's powered by lead acid batteries. They suck. They've only lasted 2 years, so I'm converting it to lithium. I've been really excited about this, and I'm hoping that this excitement will carry through to camera and make this ostensibly boring video interesting to more people than it otherwise would have been.
I mean, that sounds especially weird and unnecessary, which is amazing. And I feel like like that's the type of video where who knows, it might even do better than your other ones, just because it's so weird. Like, I'll, I, I
I
think
don't.
that's a good sign, personally.
I never know because last year my most popular video with almost, or maybe it's hit 1 million views by now, was a video about this same mower. I said don't buy it, but I think that falls into the whole negativity sells thing. Right in the top of the thumbnail, I said do not buy this.
Do you think you ended up increasing sales for that mower, like the kind of meme sales, or like how do you think that worked?
I don't think meme sales apply to something that costs 5 grand, but
Just rich people memes. So I'm curious about kind of the early days of your channel and like what your original like when you first started getting traction, like you how long did that take? Was it a gradual process? Did you have a kind of breakthrough video and then it fed into the rest of your channel? What did that look like?
oh, God, it was so long and drawn out. My first video was I was in college. I think it was 2014. And what I had envisioned for the channel was humorous Top Gear style car reviews. I did about 4 videos like that and decided, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So I stopped. And then, I don't know, about a year later, I started doing videos again, just kind of for fun. And I never really gained traction in any of these points. But I remember a point in time where it wasn't a single video that caught track. Actually, there was one video that got a little bit of traction. I remember it got 16,000 views, and I was over the moon about that number. But one video getting traction doesn't make for a successful YouTube channel. It makes for one successful video. And there was one point, I think it was 2018, where seemingly out of the blue, it wasn't a video that gained traction, it was somewhat of the whole channel, and I went from 5,000 to 10,000 subscribers in like a week, and that was
Wow.
that was really exciting. And then kind of it was a little bit after that point where I started putting a little more effort into the videos. I thought maybe I can make something full time out of this eventually, maybe. And I started putting more effort in the videos, and I stuck to a little bit of a schedule, and At some point, I just decided I got to do this full time, so I quit my job way before I was making any sort of real money on YouTube and just went for it.
Hmm. So, did you like when you went for it? Was there a plan, or were you just like, "I'm gonna make dope videos and it's gonna be cool"?
Pretty much the second part. Yeah.
I like it.
The plan was save up, put money into savings at my quote unquote real job, wait for the year end bonus, and then quit and just try to make it happen. That was it.
Hmm. Beautiful. I love that plan. So, w- the way that you monetize your channel, you have a Patreon, you have sponsorships, you
Hmm.
have ad revenue.
Yep.
Are there any? Is there anything I'm missing there?
I do. Merchandise is pretty piddly, but sometimes I'll do limited run merchandise. Like last year, I cut apart all of the windows for my school bus project and engraved them, sold those. And then this year, I took sheet metal panels from the same bus and engraved them and sold those, and that made up about 10% of my revenue last year.
Hmm, right on. And your Patreon does quite well. I'm wondering what advice you could give people because I a lot of people struggle with Patreon. Like you'll have channels that have lots of views and they even showcase a good amount of personality, but their Patreon, they have like 5 people that are willing to donate to them every month. Like what advice do you have for building a Patreon?
I don't know. So I don't spend much time thinking about this anymore, but I used to look at other people, other content creators, and then look at their Patreon. And I just feel like there's kind of an intuitive secret sauce that some of these creators have that makes people want to support them. Like I said earlier, it's sort of a personality driven channel rather than a content driven channel. And I think that helps a lot, but I don't know what
Got
the
it.
secret is. There's some creators like this old Tony again. His Patreon is barren. He only uses it. He's very honest about this. He only uses it to get some extra money. If people feel like supporting him, they can. He doesn't provide any benefits at all. There's no early releases, but his Patreon is incredibly successful.
Wow.
And then there's other people that put real effort into it and are not successful. So I really don't know. I'm
Hmm.
just happy that I am successful at Patreon, and I'm just gonna it's my second community, and it's gonna be happy about it, not worry about why it works.
Hmm. Yeah, I do think you're right about that intuitive secret sauce and like channels that are more personality focused. I think is really important. If somebody feels like they not necessarily that they know you, but like they know enough of you, like your
Yeah.
personality is showcased. So for instance, I never felt like so I started 2 channels. One called Treesicle, that was a video game channel. Another called Bonsai Pop. Treesicle's Patreon did badly. I mean, the channel has like over 900,000 subscribers, and the Patreon I think maxed out at like maybe 600 a month or something.
Oh,
But then Bonsai Pop has the Patreon did way better, like way better, and it's a much smaller channel with less views. And but I think the difference there was the content and the way it was portrayed. So Treesicle was more, I think, theatrical.
mhm.
It was less authentic or something. Whereas Bonsai Pop, and I'm not like the host of that one or anything, but just the way that it came across, I think it was a bit more um, like they felt like they knew the host or his
Yeah.
personality. So I do feel like that sort of connection with your audience makes a huge difference because I think that people want to feel like they're giving money to a person, not like an entity, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I
Hmm.
I mean, a really good example of successful Patreon is, Bad Obsession Motorsports with their Project Binky. They have one project. That is all they do, and they've been working on it for 10 years, something like that, and their living is almost entirely from Patreon. I'm sure they have AdSense sprinkled in there too, but it's just I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, Patreon's funny. It's like, did you ever struggle with talking about money or asking for money? Because this is one thing that can kind of trip people up. Is it sort of makes them uncomfortable, asking their audience, "Hey, like it would be helpful for this," or even negotiating sponsors, like because sometimes companies will be like, "How about this much money?" And maybe you don't think it's enough, and then you gotta go back and say, "I need it to be higher if I'm gonna do it." Like
Yeah.
how, like talking about money, is that something that you're comfortable with? Did it take time to get comfortable with it? How has that been for you?
Depends on the venue. I'm still very uncomfortable with it. I mean, the amount of money that I'm getting for Patreon, it just feels wrong. But at the same time, if these are people that like what I'm doing so much that they're giving me money every month, and it's
Hmm.
feels amazing in that sense. But with sponsorships, with negotiations of sponsorships, if I'm going to subject my audience to a stupid ad read, I'm going to ask for as much money as possible, and I'm not going to feel bad about it.
Hmm.
That's kind of how I approach that. I had one earlier this year that I thought I don't want to do this, so I just gave them a big a big dollar figure, and they agreed to it. So I ended up doing it, but I wasn't happy with it. Just not that the product was bad or anything. It's just like I don't care about this at all, and people are gonna most likely they're gonna skip over the ad, but they're just gonna have to suffer through this.
Hmm. And you got that money. I do feel like that strategy has worked for me in the past as well. Of like, I don't really want to do this, so I'm just going to name a number. And
Yeah,
weirdly, that seems to work. I guess, especially if it's a larger company and they have a big budget and
yeah,
maybe some stars have to align. But oh my God, like, it's almost like the less you care, the easier it is to kind of get that to work. It's very odd.
yeah. I just replied to an email this morning from a company that wanted to send me a thing, and the thing that they're sending me is related to the video that it's going to be in, which is a nice but rare bonus. But it was just the what they were asking for wasn't a 60-second integration. They were asking for a 3 to 5 minute integration, and I thought,
What?
"That is way too long." So I gave them a huge price tag number, and they said yes, so I just feel like I'm stuck into it now. But the good news is the product is something I'm actually interested in, so I can talk about it for 3 minutes and make them happy, and then I get paid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a funny problem to have. Like, oh, there's no way they'll say yes to this, and then, oh boy.
Yeah. I
And
think if you asked earlier if I had any future goals, I think if I could somehow figure out enough alternative revenue to stop doing sponsorships, that would be amazing. There's
mm,
one sponsor that I work with, and I've signed a deal to do every month for the rest of the year, and I am totally fine with working with them. They're great, and the thing that they're asking me to sell is fantastic. But the downside is it puts a deadline every month. I got to come up with the video to hit this sponsorship rather than naturally releasing the videos when they're done. So it's just
mm,
there's pros and cons.
right, totally. Like, money is a funny thing because, like, have you ever had issues balancing? There's sort of the creative drive to just do things that are interesting, but then there's sort of the reality of surviving in the world and
Yeah.
making house payments and all that stuff. Like, what? Like, how have you kind of managed that? Not just the the actual actions you've taken, but sort of mentally. Like for me, I feel like it has kind of it can take kind of a draining toll.
Yeah, extremely draining. I still struggle with this. Thankfully, this year I'm finally making enough money that I can worry about it less.
Mm,
That's not to say not worry about it. That's far from the truth, but I can worry about it less. One really good example is the EV conversion of the Escape that I'm working on right now. Hugely expensive. If I would have known last year when I was thinking about this project, how much it was going to cost, there's no way I would have done it because so far I'm 40 grand out of pocket into this stupid project. It's really exciting and I'm happy that I'm doing it, but it's a hell of a lot of money.
Mhm.
And it has provided some interesting opportunities for it to not look at it as in a negative way. It's provided some interesting opportunities to be creative for how I can make extra money to support this project. And like I mentioned earlier, I did that limited run of merchandise earlier this year where I took pieces of the bus and engraved them and sold those. And the the talking about money with my audience was pretty easy for that one because there was this single thing that I had to buy for the Escape. It was going to be $20,000. It was the batteries for it. And so I was just honest about that. This is a project, or sorry, this is a fundraiser to raise money for the batteries. And they sold out in like 8 hours. I was really happy about that.
Wow.
It didn't pay for all the batteries, but it paid for like two-thirds of them. And it helped a lot. So
Mhm.
there's opportunities for creativity and being clever in there in the moments of struggle.
Mhm. And it seems like I mean, clearly, your community is a huge part of the reason why you're able to do things like this.
Yeah.
Like, how much conscious effort do you put into maintaining your community, and how much is just kind of like on the fly, being you, responding to comments, whatever?
I don't put too much thought into it. I just keep doing what I'm doing because if I get an email of a fan that's, I don't know, telling me something or whatever, they usually sign off by saying, keep doing what you're doing. So, I mean, if I'm going to
Mm,
take their advice, just keep doing what I'm doing. They like what I'm doing. I'm not going to go and change it to chase some alternative goal. I'm just going to keep doing what I want to do.
hmm Lovely. And it's working. Why change it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, as they say.
Right. The problem is I've got a friend who's got a YouTube channel that's kind of struggling at the moment. And the problem with this whole approach that I've got is I have no idea what to tell him. He'll say, "Oh man, this video didn't do well," or "What do you think about this thumbnail?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm just gonna give you advice that is what I would do, but it's not a golden compass at
hmm
all.
hmm Yeah, maybe he just needs to find himself, go on a spirit journey and find his own intuitive secret sauce. Maybe, maybe.
Could be.
hmm So, like at this point, you want to keep doing what you're doing. You like what you're doing. You seem to be having a good time. You have all these revenue sources. Your views are very consistent. Um, like, do you feel like you have made it? Like, what does that phrase "made it" mean? And maybe it's kind of a corny question, but I think it's sort of interesting and philosophical. Of like, what constitutes making it? Like, do you feel like a star? Do you feel um, how do you feel in terms of that question?
I'd say, yeah, I do feel like I've made it. Of course, that adds the added pressure of, oh no, is this my peak? But my goal from a long time ago was to be able to essentially do the projects and buy the cars that I want to do. And I've pretty much made it to that point. There's a lot more overhead than I anticipated all those years ago, but I've pretty much made it to that point, and I'm financially secure mostly. So, yeah, I would say that I have made it.
hmm
I never imagined getting as far as I am now, so
hmm
yeah.
That's a good place to be for real, and I feel like that's a positive note to kind of wrap this up with. But I guess the last question, and this is something I've sort of already touched on, but like I know you have trouble kind of telling people how they should run a channel. But if there's like a golden rule of YouTube, what do you think it is?
Be creative, enjoy what you're doing. I mean, that's the best advice I can give. If you want to share things, share what you're doing with the world, that is the best recipe. If you're getting on YouTube to make an income, I feel like you're not going to. I'm very obviously wrong about that. There's lots of people that get on YouTube with the goal of having a business and they have a production company or whatever, and they're successful at it. So I don't know.
Hmm. I agree with that, especially if you have a more artistic mindset. Like you can have the
Yeah.
business mindset, but I think it's important to know which category you fall into and which one you're more comfortable with, and which one you're better at. You know, if you're a creative person, if you're more artistic, then I don't think it makes sense to run a YouTube channel like a business. Likewise, if you're more of a business person and you're really good at organizational tasks and delegating tasks, things like that, keeping a structure running smoothly,
Hmm.
then no, I mean, you shouldn't, like, maybe you should just pick something that you like, but you don't even have to love it necessarily. It's just, you love the process itself, not necessarily the topic itself, if that makes sense.
I feel like if you run it like a business, you're going to have trouble connecting with your audience, and you're always going to be
Mm,
chasing views and popular content and normal YouTube things like that. Whereas if you do it because that's what you want to be doing, then it's a totally different approach, and you've got a personality driven channel, and you're going to be at least be happier doing it.
hmm. Yeah. Well, I think those two categories are really important to keep in mind, and you are clearly nailing it in the creative category. So, Robert Dunn, everybody, Aging Wheels, his channel is great. Go check him out if you haven't already. And with that, I appreciate you being here, Robert.
Yeah, thank you.
Hmm. And you listening, watching, wonderful person. I will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.